In the last video, I talked a little bit about the iceberg metaphor, and key to that is this question of how do we generate our sense of self? How do we generate our sense of identity, or what I call the mental sense of self? And a core way that we do that is by projecting states of consciousness elsewhere. So we project them into the future, we project states of consciousness into the past, we project states of consciousness into conditions, and we project states of consciousness into other people. And these are really the core ways in which we do that. So what do we project? Well, we project what I call foundational fundamental human experiences, or foundational fundamental states of consciousness. And these include things like a deep feeling of being at home, a feeling of peace or groundedness, a feeling of excitement, feeling of aliveness, feeling of curiosity. There are about 25 or 30 of these that I've uncovered as I've been working with people. But the number of them, even the words that we use to describe them, are really not the point. The point is that there's this fundamental sense of being that is underlying all of your experience and that we project into other places. So how do we do this? Well, let's say that you're sitting at home and you're thinking, you know, if I only had a relationship right now, then I'd be happy. Or if I only found the person that's out there for me, then I'd be happy. If I found that special woman or I found that special man, then I'd be happy. And I should say this is a very effective way of organizing our consciousness and of organizing our society. It's why we have all of the stuff that we do. It's why we have this massive global infrastructure right now. It's why we have houses and heating and plumbing and all of this stuff. It's why I can talk to you right now, even though I'm sitting by myself in Ghent and just talking to my computer. It's why I'm going to, when I upload this to the internet, you can see it from anywhere over the world. That's a miracle. That's a really wonderful thing. It's a good thing. It's a good way of organizing ourselves. But there's this core dynamic at the heart of that creates creates a whole hell of a lot of suffering for us. And that dynamic is that even if you get the object, so if you're saying, if I'm in a relationship, then I'll be happy. Even if you get that relationship, how you've gotten there has been by very subtly reinforcing this dynamic of projecting that sense of okayness, that sense of contentment, of happiness elsewhere. You've been projecting it into the future. This one is actually three things, right? It's projecting into the future, projecting it into another person, and projecting it into a condition. And by doing that, even if you get the object, because the whole time you've been saying happiness is elsewhere, happiness is elsewhere, happiness is elsewhere, happiness is elsewhere, then what happens is when you get that object, you're still saying happiness is elsewhere. But now you're saying, oh, happiness is in a house that we can have together, or happiness is in a better job, happiness is in the next promotion, happiness is always somewhere else. Again, happiness, just an example, it could be happiness, it could be a feeling of okayness, it could be a feeling of excitement, of gratitude, of being, thankful that you're alive. It could be any of those things. Those are all related to this foundational, fundamental state of consciousness that I'm talking about. So the good news is that's always here. That's always actually present. And the way to sort of feel into that or to sense that is that even if you feel the most profound sense of alienation right now, even if that's your experience at this moment, you wouldn't feel that unless its correlate, that sense of home, was also in your consciousness. Now, it might not be what your experience is right now. Obviously, it's not in your experience right now. But you still know it somewhere. You can still feel home. And the alienation is actually your way into that. It's your way into that feeling of home. There's a lot to say about this. This is just a very basic introduction to this. If you have a question like, how does this relate to identity? Why are you saying this is where identity comes out of? It's because that fundamental move of saying not this, not this, not this, that's the basis off of which our senses of self and our egos. That's what they're built off of. They're built off of that foundational, fundamental move. And the second, question might be, well, what the hell do I do about it then? If you're saying that anything I do is motivated by projecting okayness somewhere else, what the hell do I do about it? And that's a question that brings up the difference between what I call a yogic orientation to practice, where you're practicing to get something else, you're practicing to change your experience, and a practice of view. And dreaming is a practice of view. And we're going to talk about that in the next video.